Have you ever felt like you were just going through the motions, like you were constantly checking things off a list, but never really feeling that spark of excitement, the feeling of obligation versus actual desire?
Hmm. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
Well, that's exactly what we're diving into today.
Cool.
Thanks to this super interesting video that you shared, we get to analyze a conversation between two people who are wrestling with some pretty big ideas.
Yeah, I saw that one. What did you think?
Like, how do we learn best? What does it really mean to be free? What are all the rules that society kind of imposes on us without us even realizing it?
Yeah.
And how do we find the motivation to do all the things we're supposed to do?
I mean, that's a lot to unpack.
It is, but that's why we're here. I think what makes this particular video such fertile ground for our deep dive today is that it doesn't just stay in the theoretical realm.
Right.
It brings these big abstract ideas down to earth and shows how they actually play out in our everyday lives.
Totally agree.
Our jobs, how we learn, even the things we do for fun, which, speaking of fun, one of the first things that really jumped out at me, and I'm curious if you felt the same way, was this little story about one of the speakers being totally caught off guard by how quickly the other person was able to grasp these really complex concepts.
Oh, yeah, I remember that part.
And what's fascinating is that this person was picking things up outside of their area of expertise.
Yeah.
So it makes you wonder, doesn't it?
It does.
What is intelligence, really? Is it just about how much knowledge you've managed to cram into your head? Or is there something more fundamental at play?
Right, like how our brains are wired or something.
Yeah, exactly. Like, how do some people seem to connect dots so effortlessly? I think that this anecdote about the agreeable acquaintance is the perfect place to start. What are your thoughts on that section?
Okay, so that part of the video where they're talking about this person who's always agreeing with everyone,
Yeah.
it raises a super interesting question, about the nature of agreement itself.
Oh, I like that.
Because think about it. Is someone nodding along because they're truly following you down the rabbit hole and understanding all the nuances? Or, and this is what the video seems to be hinting at, could it be more of a social strategy?
Ooh, interesting. Like a way to just keep things moving smoothly.
Yeah, exactly. And what's kind of implied here is that sometimes being agreeable on the surface might actually mask a lack of genuine, deeper comprehension.
Whoa, that's a really good point.
I mean, it makes you think, doesn't it? Have you ever found yourself in a situation where someone was super enthusiastic at first, but then their actions later on didn't really match up?
That's happened to me more than a few times. Yeah.
It's like that initial agreement was more about keeping the peace or something, rather than a genuine commitment to the idea.
It's like that classic saying, actions speak louder than words.
Exactly.
And, this whole idea of agreement versus true understanding ties in really neatly with the next point they make in the video, which is this distinction between having to do something and getting to do it.
Oh, yeah, that was a good one.
And what I love is that they use such relatable examples.
Like what?
Even things that you generally enjoy, like going for a run or playing poker, can start to feel like burdens.
Right. Just another item to cross off your to-do list.
Exactly. And I know I've definitely fallen into that trap before where a hobby that I used to love suddenly starts feeling like a second job.
Yeah, been there.
It's almost like we forget that we're choosing to do it, and instead it becomes this obligation that weighs on us.
Like what was once a source of joy becomes a source of stress. It's a real bummer.
It is. And this shift in perspective from have to get to is super powerful when we're thinking about our overall well-being.
Okay, how so?
Well, because if we can reframe those activities as choices, even choices that exist within certain boundaries, it can really boost our sense of agency.
Right. Like we have at least some control over our lives.
Exactly. And that feeling of control, that sense of autonomy, is absolutely critical for our mental health. And what the video does so well is show how that erosion of control can happen even with things we initially found pleasurable.
Like the hobbies you mentioned that turn into chores.
Exactly. And I think this whole feeling of being controlled or at least heavily directed is really at the heart of their critique of the traditional school system.
Oh yeah, they definitely went there.
Their argument is pretty straightforward. They're basically saying that a major function of schools is to train us for obedience. It's like, how much of our education, even as adults, is really about learning to follow rules and meet expectations instead of nurturing our natural curiosity and encouraging us to think for ourselves?
I mean, that's a pretty bold statement.
It is.
But I think there's definitely some truth to it. Like, think about how much emphasis is placed on standardized tests and getting the right answer.
Right.
It's like we're being trained to be good little worker bees, not independent thinkers.
And that leads them into a really thought-provoking and maybe even a little controversial discussion about the term wage slavery.
Okay, that's a loaded term for sure.
It is, and they acknowledge that right up front. They're very careful to point out that it's not the same thing as the horrors of historical chattel slavery.
Right, like those are two totally different things.
Absolutely. But they also highlight how the constant pressure of financial obligations can create this very real sense of feeling trapped.
Yeah, I can see that.
Even though technically you do have the freedom to walk away from a job you don't like.
Sure, but it's easy to say and much harder to actually do.
Exactly. Like, how free are you really if you're constantly worried about making rent or paying your bills?
Yeah, when you think about all the responsibilities most people have, it can definitely feel like you're stuck, even if you technically have options.
It's like that saying golden handcuffs.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
But, this is where the conversation in the video takes a turn towards practical solutions.
Oh, good, because I was starting to wonder where they were going with all that.
Yeah, because one of the speakers actually expresses frustration with simply pointing out problems without offering any potential solutions.
Makes sense.
And they really emphasize the importance of taking personal responsibility and developing what they call self-leadership skills.
Okay, I like that. What kind of skills?
Things like managing your time effectively and setting clear personal goals.
I mean, those are definitely important.
Right. And I think for our listeners who are so committed to learning and self-improvement, this emphasis on taking action really resonates, right?
Totally. Because it's one thing to understand the challenges we face, but it's another thing entirely to actually do something about them.
It's that difference between knowledge and application.
Exactly.
And, all of these threads that we've been unraveling, they all seem to lead back to this core question of what it really means to be free.
Yeah, that seems to be a recurring theme throughout the video.
It is. And the speaker who was so skeptical of traditional schooling, the one who was leaning towards homeschooling,
Right.
well, they clearly see freedom as this ability to develop critical thinking skills from a young age outside of what they see as a potentially limiting system.
Interesting. So they're basically saying that true freedom is about being able to think for yourself.
Yes. And to make your own informed decisions based on your own analysis of the information you have.
I mean, that's a pretty powerful idea.
It is, and it brings us to the final and I think most important takeaway from the video, the critical importance of having a critical mindset.
Couldn't agree more.
They wrap up the conversation by really hammering home this need to constantly question everything, to reevaluate our assumptions, and to actively try to improve our actions instead of just blindly following whatever expectations are placed upon us.
It's like they're saying, don't just accept things at face value, think for yourself.
Yeah. And they even use the word indoctrinated to describe how easily we can internalize these external pressures without even realizing it.
It's like we're being programmed without our consent.
Exactly. So, for anyone listening, this is a powerful reminder to be constantly evaluating the information you're taking in and the decisions you're making.
Don't just be a passive consumer of information.
Yeah.
Be an active participant in your own life.
Yes, 100%. So, as we wrap up this deep dive into the video you shared, I think it's clear that we've uncovered some really interconnected themes here.
It's like they're all pieces of the same puzzle.
Yeah, exactly. We talked about how our individual perspectives can shape how we experience obligations, the often subtle ways that society can influence our thinking, the complex and sometimes confusing nature of freedom in the world we live in, the importance of taking action and making choices, and ultimately, the incredible power of having a curious, critical mind.
It's a lot to think about.
It is. And remember, these were all ideas sparked by the source material that you brought to us today. So thank you for that.
Always happy to contribute.
And as we sign off, I want to leave you with a final thought, something to really ponder.
Okay, I'm listening.
Building on the video's emphasis on questioning everything, I want you to ask yourself this. What's one should in your life, a belief you've always held, or a habit you've never questioned, that you might benefit from taking a closer look at? Maybe it's something you've just accepted as truth without ever really thinking about it.
Interesting.
Maybe it's time to challenge those shoulds and see what happens.
I like it.
Just something to think about as you go about your day.
Food for thought, for sure.
No, not myself. Yeah, I was in a studio and it was a friend of mine. But yeah, I did pay for it, yes.
Okay. Yeah, it looks very professional.
That's why. Well, thank you. I'll let them know that you like it. Good.
And yeah, I've met your friend. We had a nice chat last Saturday.
Nice.
It was very interesting. He's a very, I thought that he is very smart. And I mean that because when I talked with him about concepts that were totally foreign to him, that he didn't knew about before, he really fast grabbed the idea and understood why it was I'm talking about it and why I think it's good. And the only thing I must add is that he seemed to me to be very agreeable. So he agreed with a lot that I've said or a lot we talked about. So he looked like a very, very agreeable person. And I have only met him once, so I cannot jump to any conclusion. But the thing is, it's one thing to agree with me. It's another thing to agree with everything, you know? So, but I don't think that's his case. Anyways, it was I really enjoyed my time with him and I'm glad I met him. So thank you for arranging that between us.
I'm happy to hear that. Everything went according to my plan, right? But yes, I do think he's very friendly and nice. So, and agreeable. Yeah. I mean, maybe.
You know him more, so you know if he's really a really agreeable person or if it's just the topics we talked about he agreed with. You know how agreeable he is, but he never said, no, you're totally wrong. This is stupid or I don't agree at all with what you just said. I've never had anything like this from him, and there was never any hate or he didn't seem shocked with the ideas I came up with. And the ideas are quite, well, not everybody talks about a resource-based economy or about our slavery system and so on. So that he could agree with all those topics was astonishing to me.
Well, first, I just think he's polite and friendly, so he would never say something, yes, like you said, that's very stupid or something like that. Secondly, I think he might agree with you, right? I think you might have some similar beliefs regarding that.
Yeah, but you know him from a long time. So, and you are his friend. You spent time in school together and you still talk. So, if he always agrees or you have a heated debate and he won't agree with you because yeah, I was surprised. I was surprised by how smart he is, how fast he gets things. And I was also surprised on how agreeable he is. But it was maybe just a subject we agreed on, So I cannot jump to any conclusion. But you know how agreeable he is. If you get into fights with him from time to time or if that never happens. That's something only you can say because you have more experience.
I think he's able to state his opinions and disagree, but I do think he's able to do it in a considerate way, right? So he's always thinking also why you think the way you think and he tries to think like a bridge, right? He tries to see in a way where he's looking for that commonality instead of looking for the conflict, I guess, if that makes sense. But I do think he has his own opinions and he can state them. I don't think he's just always agreeing on everything. That would be boring. But
no, I didn't say that, but I mean, he's smart. So if he's smart and he thinks about things, I'm sure he makes up his own opinions. But you know much more about him than I do, so I should let you talk.
Yeah, I think he's friendly, has a lot of friends, and I think he's just makes people feel good in general, I guess you could say like that. But it's nice that you noticed it, right? It shows how observant you are, and yeah. Good.
Yeah, but not everybody makes people feel good. That's something remarkable about him.
Maybe musicality has something to do about it. Don't you think that people who are very musical see more the harmony in things?
Yeah, I would like that explanation. It's not my experience, but I would like that explanation. But it's not my experience.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know, right? But I did watch the video you sent me, and I have some quick comments on it if you'd like to hear them.
Yeah, I would find that very interesting to have your feedback.
Yeah, the first really big thought I had when listening to it was that quite often I think about in a way that I have to do it instead of I can do it or I get to do it. And I feel like that's something I should address more in my life, that even things that I've chosen to do, but now if I plan them out, I still feel like I have to do them, right? So sometimes it's also the same with lessons or even like anything that I like doing, right? Whether it's going outside or going to the gym or to the nature, even all these things I very much enjoy, like going running. I really like running. It still often feels like I have to do it, right? So this is somehow like programmed mentally. And I do think that just taking a different perspective on this, just saying to myself that I get to do it today. I get to do whatever I'm doing, I think like brings a different light to things. That it's not only that I have to play poker, it's also that I get to play poker and that I like to play poker. So it's finding that different perspective. That's one thought I had with the video. It wasn't directly to do with his point. It just came to mind how he was talking about things. Then from his point, he mentioned that schools teach us to obey. And I thought about that and there's somehow I do seem to agree with that in school there's a lot of just to do what you're told, and then there isn't too much where you can choose your own path with the school system. And most people, once they finish school, they go to a workplace, and it's also very similar, right? That someone tells them what they have to do. And I mean, you could say that it's maybe evil minds have programmed the society like this. But I also think that most people find it freeing in a way that they don't have to decide what to do. That can be very stressful. That can be difficult and complicated. So basically, the thought I had with all of that at the end was people stay in school or stay in the workplace environment until they don't need orders anymore from anyone else. And that's when they leave that and start their own business or do something different. Like something like that came to my mind. But I don't think it's good or bad one way or the other way. Like I do think we all need orders from time to time from someone who knows things better than we do. But also I think there needs to be a good balance there, right? So with school systems as well, would be good if there was more time there, I guess, where people could develop that side of themselves where they make the decisions and when they're kind of carving the path. So I do think that's something where it's like a skill also that's trained, right? To train leadership positions. And I do think it's maybe lacking really in the way that people are taught. And last two comments are, I don't really like the phrase wage slavery, because when you were a slave, you could not leave. And if you tried to leave, they could come with horses and catch you and torture you or just kill you or stuff like that. Whereas the jobs people do there, you're not forced in a way like slavery into it. You could say, well, there's people have loans and bills and these things, but also these things they take them. No one is born with a loan, right? People take it on themselves. So I don't like that phrase wage slavery. I mean, that's just like a technical thing, right? I mean, I get why it's used. It's like an emotional term if you call something slavery. And there's some truth to it. And I'm sure some people do feel very trapped in the work they do and very, very unhappy with it. But I do think it's a bit better than slavery was. And last point, I don't think it's like I left the bad point to the end. So that's a bit harsh. But I felt with his video, I really somehow got this thing that he didn't propose any solutions. And I do think it's fine, right? Sometimes there's issues we want to talk about and we don't have solutions for them. But still, I don't know. I was just thinking imagine a poker coach and you go to him and he says like, yeah, you're playing so bad and you're doing everything wrong, but then he doesn't propose any way you could change that, right? So just I felt I would have liked if there was more with this video, like some practical things people could start changing it. I mean, that could even be like something similar to what I said before, that okay, we need to practice leadership. So a way to do it could be to, with your free time, try to like lead it, right? Like to organize it, to like be your own boss. You can't do it with all the things at first, but like everyone could be more their own boss in a way, where they set out like to-do lists or things like that, and then start doing them, and then be critical towards it, and then I think that's like at least the way to get more used to taking accountability and being like strict on yourself, which I think is necessary for people, so that they wouldn't need so much to rely on the school system or the bosses or all that thing. But yeah, for very lastly, because I don't want to end on that point, that I would have liked if he was more practical advice there. Yeah, the biggest thing I take away from watching this video is that I should rephrase or think about how I'm phrasing things. I feel like very often I'm phrasing things in a way where I have to go, even to a birthday sometimes. I have to go, it's an obligation. And I'm thinking a lot about in these obligation type of ways. And I do think for my mental health, I would feel much better if I just thought about it that, well, I like doing a lot of these things and that I like doing them and so on. Yeah. That's all I have on this.
Yeah, it's interesting having your feedback. The topic that interested me the most was when you talked about people and if they are free. And that's a topic you have to think about. Who is a free person and what makes a free person? So the thing is, what I want to tell you, for example, is that if I have kids in universities, the least amount of time, I want them to stop as soon as possible. I would even try to find a doctor who invalidates them, who always says they are sick, so they don't have to go to school. But I would do anything in my power to homeschooling or unschooling to make them enter the school system as the least amount of time, because I think it sucks away your creativity and it makes you lazy because you stop having critical thinking mechanism. You know, when you talk about free person, it's somebody who can think critically about something. You know, I have a very critical mindset, even regarding poker and my future as a poker player. Okay. So I also have a critical mindset with everything I do in life, my YouTube channel and everything else. And it's not because right now I'm publishing a lot of videos, because I learn a lot while I do that I will still do it in 2 years. If I come to the conclusion that it's a waste of time or that I could use my time for something better, I would just switch and do the other thing that I find more interesting. So I have a very critical mindset about a lot of things. But most people are very indoctrinated. By that I mean their family, or it's like if they live in a sect. Is that how you call it in English, a sect?
Yeah, I know that word, yes.
So it's like if they ended, what's the one I'm thinking about? The one that asks for a lot of money for the people. I think Tom Cruise is in it. Scientology. It's like if they're in Scientology. I mean, they start acting very crazy and spending a lot of money just to get higher in the charts. And you think, man, why do you do all that? Don't you realize that somebody is leeching of a few and actually destroying your life? It's good for the church, Scientology, but is it really good for you or for any participant? No, there was that story about the comment. I think it's called Haley. It was a comment that passed very close to Earth. And there was one sect, one, I would call it a satanic sect. And they thought that the comet was a spaceship. And they all came to the conclusion that when the comet is just above your head, you have to kill yourself, because then you will transit into that comet and you will go to a higher level with the spaceship. No? So that's quite crazy, you know? So they had other things like you shouldn't have any sexual relationships. I mean, if you have a critical thinking, you go, okay, maybe no sexual relationship is a good thing, because because there's some filth involved in it, and it's not good to just look too much after that. So maybe no sexual relationship. Okay, I can agree with that. But when you think that the comet is a spaceship and I have to kill myself when it's above my head, come on, man. Let me have my own judgment and take a step back. But nobody did. Every member in the church killed themselves just when the comet was above the head, So you see, people are very easy indoctrinated, and they very easily stop having any critical thinking, and they aren't free. You're free, and the other thing, you're really free if you always can make a choice. If you're stoic and you say, for example, okay, life is not worth living anymore, I will put an end to it here. If you can do that, think like this, and you're not scared of doing that, then you always have a choice. Then you are never a slave, not even in antiquity. Whatever happened, and whatever king makes you a slave, you're not a slave. As soon as you decide that you won't be a slave, you can put an end to it, and everybody could. And if everybody did that, there would never be any slaves on Earth. But most people don't have that passion and that energy and the strength, and they don't also have the philosophical principle that make them free. I think that to be free, you need a lot of philosophy and a lot of stoicism. I think that philosophy, that the obedience to philosophy makes you free. As long as you keep practicing your philosophy thoughts, you keep asking yourself questions about life. And normally a critical thinking should, but most people don't have that. So not everybody is free. And yes, you can make choices, but if every choice is very penalizing, so if you, for example, quit your job, or if you just do what he talked about, quiet quit, you do some quiet quitting, but somebody notices that you're actually quiet quitting, that you put the least amount of effort in it so that you can live during the weekends. He talked about that, But if you do that and somebody notices it and you get sanctioned, so you lose your job, and then you all your income goes to zero or very close in a second, and you can afford food, housing, or take care of your family, well, then you have very little choice, actually, I wouldn't say that you are free, but I'm talking about freedom in a philosophical thing. I think that only very few people are very free. Everybody else has a lot of obligations. I feel a lot of obligations, but a lot of obligations I like, and there are also obligations I do not like at all. For example, taxes. After every year, send my form to the state. All those kind of stuff I hate. I really don't like doing that because I don't agree with it. So I have to do something that goes against my things. But I do it because if not, the sanctions would be too bad if I don't do anything. So I'm not free in every regard, and I feel also obligations to my friends and so on. So when they call me or want to see me, I rarely see I don't have time, or half an hour becomes the whole evening. So, but not to be free, I think you need a lot of courage and a lot of critical thinking. And I don't see that in people most of the time.
Yeah. Somehow what resonated with me was that the philosopher thinking you said that at any point you can kill yourself if you don't like the emperor. And somehow I think it goes together with this mindset shift I was describing, that I get to do it versus I have to do it. And I feel like this is even a more extreme version of I get to do it, because that means if I truly believe in what you said, then there isn't nothing that I have to do. Everything I do by choice, because I always have the option to kill myself and not do it. So I find it very liberating to have this philosophy that you described.
That's great. But you also realize that's a hard thing to do. It's easy to talk about, but it's a hard thing to do.
Yes, it is for sure. That's why, I think these things take training, right? It's tough to become free all at once, but it's like with anything, it's something you can free yourself little by little with the actions you take, I think. So, and also the way you said that you often give yourself a lot, right, to people, or try to, if they want something, you try to help them or try to find time for them. I feel like I do that a lot as well. I think it's called being a people's pleaser, right? That you want people to be happy and so on. And I think that's a skill I want to develop more in myself as well, which is basically saying no and putting limits to things and just thinking about what I want more as well. So I think it's good you brought it up.
Yeah. That means in half an hour you tell me it's over and we look at no more hand. No, I'm just kidding.
By the way, it is true for today that the same guy scheduled for this week the same time, and he did it so quickly that I didn't have time to change anything with my schedule, and he likes that time as well. So I don't think it will be like this for forever. I think he usually schedules like random times, but this time he did schedule the same time. So yes, I do have to go in about 35 minutes. However, I could, if we only do half an hour of poker, I could meet up with you either 1 hour after I have to leave. So once his lesson is finished, if it's fine with you, or I could meet up with you some other day this week.
Yeah, both are possible. And you don't have to do that. We just can make only half an hour today.
To do it also, right? So
okay, then let's try to do it in 1 hour once you finish with him. But isn't that too much for you? I mean, mentally, won't you be totally drained if you have that much lessons?
I had some lessons in the morning. Then so right now I feel quite energized. So
okay,
yeah,
then maybe. So if we make a pause between our lessons today, it would be great if we could maybe do something different. First look at some hands and then do something different, or first do something. If we could between two things. You had something in mind about that?
I already did, and actually it goes together well with this, yes. So let's do it in the second half, which is my plan is to do some reports in hand to note. So we'll see your results for specific scenarios. Like when you go all in, are you mostly profiting through that action or not? If you call an all in, are you mostly profiting or not? If you call a re-raise by someone, are you profiting or not? If you're we don't get to go through all of them, but just examples like that. And basically I'm trying to, through this, hopefully we would find somewhere, I'm saying hopefully, but it is a good way. It's for development reasons. Ideally, we find something where you're doing very badly against, and then we're like, this is what we can improve on. Or we'll find that everything seems in order, but we'll see. I mean, I've done this stuff a lot, so it's quite often that there's some scenario like calling an all-in or calling a re-raise or calling in the big blind where people have errors. So basically the point of this is to figure out what are the scenarios you're struggling in at the moment. So that's the plan for the second half of this today.
Sounds very interesting. So I'm looking forward to it. So now I have opened hands to note, so we can start straight away and take a look at a couple of hands.
One more question on you meeting me.
Yeah.
Which is, what was he interested about? What was like if you think the main thing he asked you about or just showed interest in, what seemed to interest him the most?
So the most he seemed to be interesting in philosophy, actually. That was what I thought. And we also tried to make a recording, but unfortunately it was in a restaurant, in a cafe restaurant. And at the beginning there were not a lot of people, but during the end it got very, very crowded. So crowded that the people even asked us to leave because they wanted to give the table away to somebody who will be dining, And he had to catch a train, so we couldn't eat together. He took something, a sandwich later, but we didn't have time to eat together. Anyways, the thing is, he seemed very interesting and we tried to make a recording. So we did the recording, but unfortunately I have 3 settings on my microphones. So I have a microphone for me and my microphone for the guy who's sitting next to me while I record. And that microphone has 3 settings. One is without noise cancellation, and the other ones are moderate noise cancellation and high noise cancellation. And we tried high, and it was very distorted because he tried too much to correct. So then we went to moderate noise cancellation. But even that, when it gets too noisy, it works too hard because the noise cancellation realizes that there are too many parasitic sounds and too many things that should not be there. So he starts cutting stuff out. And he does that quite a lot, especially when it gets very crowdy and everybody talks very high. Then he doesn't know on which voice to focus, actually. And he starts even cutting out your voice. So you don't hear any music anymore, but your voice, half of what you say is gone. So unfortunately, I cannot show you that recording. If not, you could see yourself what he was interested in and what we talked about. A snippet, at least, at it. We made the recording just a half an hour and we talked for like 2 hours or even more. So, but yeah, it didn't work. It was just too crowdy and too noisy.
What was his impressions of Switzerland? Did you talk about that as well?
No, but he told me that he already traveled a lot. And one of his impressions was that immigration was quite under control in our country, that it works better than in other countries where he went to. I think he went to Sweden, Norway, and he said here immigration looks better. And I said, well, I don't actually think it is so much better. I just think we have more money to spend on it and it is better managed because of that. We just inject more money into it than maybe other states do. So it looks a little better managed, but it's the same thing here as anywhere else. But he thought that immigration was not an issue in Switzerland. And I do not actually agree 100% with it. I mean, the thing is, it's a democratic stuff. It's like, I published also a video about Greece, and Greece is losing a lot of people because a lot of young people emigrate to other countries and old people are dying off. So they have it very hard. And I don't think they can get that much immigrant into their country. So, when the population is shrinking a lot and very fast, you either die off and you don't mind that you will have 10 millions and 5 millions and 2.5, then 1.25, If you agree with that and you're okay just disappearing like this, then that's one way of going. The other to open the gates of mass immigration. So yeah, I mean, there's no country on earth that I know about who managed the demographic stuff because nowhere women want to have 2, 3 or 4 children anymore nowadays, So since that's the case, population will shrink but if we don't reproduce and we just pulling people in, it has a huge impact on our future. There's a country I also made a video about. It's called Indonesia. And Indonesia is actually the biggest Muslim country on earth. They have 270 million Muslims. And that's even more than Saudi Arabia or any other country. And you know how it became? It is on the Silk Road. So Islamic merchants were arriving in Indonesia. And they started settling there and taking wives. And then they converted their wives and their kids into Islam. And it is now the biggest Islamic state on earth. So we also admitted a lot of Muslims, So I think we could have a similar fate than in 1 or 2 centuries. So it will look very different. And there won't be a lot of people like I left in Switzerland. It's just something to be aware. So that's my opinion. And he thought that immigration was fine, that it's not an issue here, while he admitted that it's an issue in Norway and Sweden. Yeah, he admitted that there it is an issue, but he said in Switzerland it is not. So we didn't agree about that. If not, he didn't say much about Switzerland. He thought he just wanted to see a state that is very developed and very wealthy. That's all he added. He didn't say much more about Switzerland.
He has traveled a lot in Europe. I feel like every year he's always somewhere traveling. So
that's great if you are that young and you can manage to do that. If you find the money and the occasion. Well, he was traveling with air in Switzerland. So it was because of his university. And he has one lesson in Bern where he does computer science, AI. He studies something in AI, which I found very interesting. And and we also talked about that. his opinions about AI. He was a very smart and interesting guy. I hope I keep in touch with him and we can meet again one day or see each other again, because he was very interesting.
Yeah, good. And it sounds like based on your Indonesia story that I should read the Quran, right?
Yeah. You managed to make a little joke about it.
No, I'm serious, right? I think it's important to, if so many people believe in it, then it's important to know what it's about, right? So
Yeah. You know my opinion about Abrahamic religions. I think I already told you.
yeah, I do think so, but yeah, I still, no, it's not, I have my own opinions about everything really, but I still like knowing what the people, if billions of people are reading that book every day, well, I want to know what they're reading about. It doesn't mean I have to agree with it.
Yeah, I understand that. But, if it was I don't think it's something they really choose. I think it's something they get born into. It's just something, it's just something that happens. I'm a Stoic man and I believe in Stoic philosophy, but I did choose it myself. It's just because it's the most brave and the most respected philosophic current on earth. But talk to modern philosophers, they aren't Stoic. They don't believe in it, They know what Stoicism is about. They can write an essay about it, but they aren't Stoic, and there's a huge difference about writing an essay and being able to talk about it and actually being it. There's a huge difference. So that's something I chose. So it's interesting to me and it should be interesting to a lot of people because it is a choice. But most people, they don't choose their religion, If the mother is Jewish, they are Jewish. If the mother is Christian, they are Christian. If she's Muslim, they are Muslim, and they never think about it.
Yeah, I don't mind that. I mean, obviously, I would prefer if people chose what they do, but I'm just comparing it to poker. That I like hearing bad poker advice. I like
bad poker advice.
Yes, because on a poker table, it helps you if you know what player 3, player 4, player 5 are thinking. Right? That's very important.
Yeah, while you play against them, to exploit them.
But also to get along, not only to exploit, also to avoid conflicts, also to find solutions. It's tough to find the solution if you don't know what the problem is, right? If you don't know what differences are in the philosophy, even if you don't agree with their philosophy. So I think it's that's where my interest is.
I think there was a king or an emperor called Frederick II, and he spoke something like 6, 7, or 8 languages. And it was very favorable to him because he could talk with all those people directly without a translator. And it was great for he was called one of the wonders of the world, So when you say, I want to get along, I want to understand them and try to get along with them. Yeah, it makes me think of Frederick II, who spoke all those languages and could talk directly to the ambassadors without any translation.
Oui.
Okay, so my first hand is an 8 and an ace.
Oui.
Okay, I have one guy who goes all in and I have to decide if I make my all in. I have only 3.79 left and I took the decision to do that all in. What do you think?
Yeah, I think I would have done the same.
Okay.
Do you want to know what the machine would do also or no?
I think it will agree. Don't want it?
Yeah, I think the other player 3, has 5 big blinds. He has to go all in a lot. And you're getting 2-1 here, right? Close to it. So yeah, and there's little bubble pressure, right? We have just last 3 big blinds. Will we really get a better scenario? I mean, it's tough to see, right? It's the one, if we had to choose who we have to go all in against, we would choose player 3. So, and yeah, do you get a better hand in the next few hands? I mean, maybe. Will everyone fold if you get a better hand? Probably not. Just 3 big blinds, right? So I do agree with this play.
Okay, but Fortune didn't agree with us.
Indeed. There's a nice poker. But I want to read you something.
Here it doesn't say if pre-flop he had 72%. So he was way, way ahead because he had an ace and a 10 and we only had an ace and an 8.
Yeah, you're right. But he could also go all in with another ace that's weaker than ace 8. He could also go all in with low pocket pair. He could go all in with king queen, king jack. So
Just normal stuff that happens when you play poker, but we did make the right decision. That's important.
the nice thing I wanted to say is if you're not suffering from bad beats, you're probably not taking enough risks. I like this saying.
If you're not suffering from bad beats, you're not playing enough.
Yes, and in addition to it, exactly, yes. All right.
This time I have an ace and a 6 offsuit and one guy raised to 2 big blinds and the other called. So can I afford putting 1 big blind on the table and seeing a flop? And I thought yes, I could. And I thought also that I should, because the pot has already 6.5 big blinds in it. So I get pot odds 6-1, and that looks to me quite good. And an ace 6, well, it's not a very good hand, but if I'm the only one who has an ace and an ace comes, well, then I have a chance.
Yeah, I don't think I would have folded here, I think.
Okay, I did it because I thought sometimes you have to defend your big blinds and the pot odds were good. But if you think that folding is better, okay, next time I'll try to fold.
Yeah, why do I think it's better though?
Because we are facing 2 players and it's very hard to win against 2 players. And also an ace and a 6 is not a very good hand.
Yeah, it's not a great hand. It doesn't flop draws, right? That's an issue. If you have a suited hand, sometimes you can call even a weak pair because you have even 3 to a flush or something, like 3 to a straight. This hand makes very little draws. And the ace will only be on the flop 1 in 6 flops, right? So that's already close to this 6-1 odds you're getting. But I'm not sure ace will be good for us, right? Because a player 3 could have many aces and player 7 could also have an ace. So that's what concerns me about this hand, that 5 out of 6 times we won't flop an ace. And the times we do, well, I don't want to see anyone betting on that ace. That would be scary.
Yeah, I agree. I think you're right. I should have folded. So just 1 big blind, but I have nothing. So there's no point in trying to find out what he has.
Yeah. Good news is you saw all 5 cards, but yeah, bad news is that we didn't hit any of those 5 cards.
Yep. Okay, now.
Pocket aces, yes. And do you know how this hand is also called?
No, I do not.
It's also called the snowman.
I didn't know that.
Why could it be called the snowman?
Because it looks a little like a snowman.
Yes. So actually, almost you could even say every hand in poker has their special nicknames. Now, I don't remember all of them, but for example, Ace King has many names. One name that I know is called AK-47 or the Kalashnikov, that Russian automated weapon.
Yeah, that's funny. So here, I think I should just call and see what I have. It's a little hard to fold my pocket aces, but the thing is, it's also it's a fresh hand, so I remember what happened. But he went for 5.83 big blinds, and I think I thought about giving him a lot of credit, and I even hesitated folding because of it, but I did not, because I thought pocket aces are too good to fold. So what do you think about that?
I hear you saying aces, not eights.
Pocket eights too strong. You think
I would fold here?
Yeah, then you would have to have done the right thing, because it didn't go well. And you just do it because he puts 5 big blinds on the table and shows a lot of strength.
Yeah, he puts a big risk, right? Early position as well. Could he be bluffing? Yes, but that will be very costly for him. Because for his bluff to work, it has to work against 8 players, right? Or 7 players. So I don't think it's a good spot to bluff for him. And also I don't think people bluff very often when they raise so big. Often I see in these small games, people raise very big because they just have aces, and it makes sense. You have aces, you want to raise very big. And we're really, hoping that maybe he has ace queen and it goes check, 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 and he doesn't bet, or that we hit an 8. But it's very tough. The pot's very big, and we're not gonna hit an 8 that often. And we're also out of position. He has more chips than us. So yeah, it's just a tough hand to go well for us. So that's why I would fold. I think the common advice given on this, which I think has some sense, is to call when you have 15 times more than what you're calling. So you had to call here let's say roughly 5. I know it was a bit more, but let's say you had to call 5. So 10 times more than 5 is how much?
50.
And what would be 15 times more than 5?
It would be 75.
75, yes. So a common advice would be that you could make a call like this if you had 75 big blinds. That having 15 times more, that would be enough cushion that you could make a case for that, well, I'm going to lose this 5 a lot, but when I do hit an 8, now the upside is that I could double up 75 chips or 15 times more. So,
Okay, thank you.
all right. Yeah, you're trying to bluff someone who showed a lot of strength already, right? I know he's shown now weakness on the flop by checking, but in general, this flop is the stuff he said he had, right? He said by big raise, he has big cards, kings, queens. So sometimes someone could check the flop because he just flopped 3 of a kind kings or queens. So yeah, I mean, what are we hoping? Maybe he has 9s now, 10s, maybe jacks. It's possible, but it's the overall situation is bad, right? We're bluffing someone who put in the middle more than 5 chips. It's tough for them to now change their mind and fold, right? He clearly liked his hand pre-flop. So I do think if you would bet here, you would have to bet more. I feel like this bet, even if he has pocket jacks, if he has a queen maybe or tens, I think they would still be tempted to call this. I feel like you would have had to go even bigger, but I don't like any of this, to be honest. I don't think it's a good spot to bluff. And the big reason is that he's already showed so much strength in this hand.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I mean, and by the end of it, it looks like he had pocket kings and he didn't bet the flop because he had a little too much there, right? Sometimes people do that. And I actually think that's smart, that if your hand is so guaranteed to win, right? If you had pocket queens, pocket kings, you can be more tricky then because there's no bad cards for you that can come in the deck.
Yeah, it's just to know when there's no bad card. Sometimes you do that and then he makes a full house and you're in a very bad situation.
Could happen, yes. Wow. What a disaster for us, right? A nice hand, but then people call, someone makes a huge raise, and yeah, you're faced with a lot here. I don't mind your fault. It's just unfortunate for us, right, that he raised so big. But his raise size, actually, I do think it makes sense considering that there was so many chips in the pot, right? Before he raised, pot was nearly how big, I guess? Question for you. How big was the pot before he raised?
It was half what it is now. It was around a little less. It was around 12.
Yeah, around 12, right? So he did risk a lot, but he did get a big reward for it as well. But yeah, unfortunately, what can we do with ace queen? We don't want to go all in against him. He's showing a lot of strength. We don't want to call this either out of position and hope we hit something on the flop. So I do think your fold was sensible.
Okay, thank you. Now an ace and a 7 suited. I have one person who puts 2 big blinds on the table, but he's early position. So cut off, hijack. He's a low jack. So can I call with a7 against the low jack when it's suited? He's 2 big blind raise, and I don't know.
Certainly, yes. The option here is you can use it as a re-raise bluff or you can call. So both options have their merits. If you raise, then you give yourself to win immediately. You also put pressure on him and it looks more scary for him. And you would be raising saying you have aces or ace king or queens or something good. Or you could call because you're in position, you have a suited ace, we're deep stacked. So both options are good here. I wouldn't fold this.
What's the lowest ace suited that I can call? Is it ace 3 suited, or can I not go that low? What's the lowest?
I
Ace
think ace 4, ace 5 is still feeling comfortable. Ace 2, ace 3 wouldn't feel as comfortable anymore.
Okay, and offsuit, what would be the lowest? Ace 10 offsuit, would that be the lowest?
Yeah, I think that's sensible. I mean, ace 9 maybe, right? Because you only raise 2 big blinds, but ace 10 certainly.
Okay, thank you. So I see an ace on the flop, which is good, but he goes for 8 big blinds.
Right.
So
This is-
pot size. So what do I mean? There's a good chance he has an ace, and if he has an ace, there's a good chance he's on a flush draw. So can he make a straight? Maybe he's on a straight draw also. So it doesn't look too good to me. He's pot size bet.
Right, and we don't only have to worry about him. Player 6 is also here. Sometimes player 6 has just pocket fours. That's a small issue, right? But still, it's important. If player 6 is not here, then it's less dangerous for us. Machine would never fold here, right? You flop top pair, never ever folding. But in practice, this is unexpected, right? What does it mean if something's unexpected? It means it happens rarely. If something happens, does that mean people bluff a lot doing that or not? What does it imply if something's rare? Does it mean that people bluff there a lot or no?
The answer to your question is they should not bluff a lot. Because if it is rare, then yeah, they should not. But I'm interested in his sizing. I mean, if I would have made top pair, I would just have gone for half pot. So if he puts 8 big blinds on the table, either he has pocket aces and he feels so strong that he cannot do anything else but put 8 on the table. But why is he going for pot size? Scares people off. Why does he want to scare me off? Is his hand not that good? You know what I mean?
Because he's out of position and there can be many scary cards that will come. So it does make sense for him to protect himself, right? If he bets small here, and everyone calls. He bets half pot again on the turn. Everyone calls. Then he's invested a lot into the pot. Let's say river is a diamond, and then he will lose all of that. So he's trying to. He's not worried if people fold here. He's worried that most likely something will make a straight or a flush and beat his ace king, his ace queen, or ace jack or what he has.
Yeah, I agree with that. Thank you, Norman.
And the other side to it is, hey, it's not always gonna scare people off, which means he wins double as much by it, right? If people will still call often, like let's say he has ace king, well, mostly people won't fold here, whether he bets half pot or pot size, if they have an ace or if they have a flush draw. So then he maximizes how much his ace king wins. Okay?
Okay, it's time to quit because you have your lesson that is starting. I see you.
And off, then I'll apologize for being 1 minute late. So
yeah.
I do think you can call with your flush draw. You can hit also a 7. And I do think it's close, but I'm okay with you calling the flop. Good that player 6 folded. Another scary card. He keeps at it. And now I do think it's time to fold, right? Wasn't the 7, wasn't the heart, wasn't another ace. So yeah, I think you played this hand well. But
okay, thank you.
It's good that you're noticing already this, that even on the flop, you do have top pair, but you still have to be cautious. I think that's a very good sign.
Okay, great. So see you in 1 hour. Thanks a lot, Norman.
Probably 1 hour, 5 minutes, but some were like this, okay?
It's great. I'll be there.
See you. Bye.
See you.